Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Showtime Satch, and today, man, we'll be going over the 10 concepts that every chess player must know, man. So, we're going to start off this list kind of with some beginner topics, and then we're going to elevate our way to some more advanced topics. So, without further ado, man, we'll go ahead and get right into it with number one, checkmating with the queen and king. And like I said, we're going to start off very basic, but, I see a lot of players kind of just moving aimlessly around, not exactly sure what to do. So, we're going to go ahead and get to the board here. And I see the first thing you want to do is to take knight opposition with the queen. Now, what does that mean? That means you're going to get into a square that if the queen was a knight, it would be check. Now, the reason you do this is you're cutting the king off. So obviously, this king is now in a box. And we're going to keep shrinking that box until he's at the edge of the board and it's mate. So the king has to move. Let's just say he gives you a hard time, goes f4. You're going to bring the king up, so that's also very important. To get your king involved, you cannot checkmate with just one piece. You're going to have to use your king and your queen. Let's just say he goes back. We're going to bring the king up some more. If he goes back, we're going to keep taking this knight opposition. You see the box is getting smaller and smaller. Opponent goes g6, bring the king up. King goes up. Now we take knight opposition. And let's just say, he's trying to hit you with maybe some stalemate traps here. That's okay. The main thing you want is right here in this position is to get to this e7 square. This e7 square. Now all you have to do is bring your king all the way up the board, and it will be checkmate. As you see, the king has two legal moves. He can just go back and forth, but you're not going to let him do that. You play g8 or g6, and now the game's over. You can choose your mate here, pick your poison. There's 3, 4 checkmates, 5 checkmates on the board. So easiest one is queen g7. Putting the queen right in between the king and the edge of the board. So that is how you checkmate with a queen and king. Moving on. Now we have the second checkmate. This one's a little more difficult, but still very important you know how to do that. Is the rook and king checkmate ending. So very similarly to the queen checkmate, you're going to want to box the king off. This one's going to be a little more difficult, but you want to cut him off rank by rank. So you go to one below his highest rank. So if he's on the 6th rank, we're going to go to the 5th rank. And now let's say he attacks your rook. That's fine. You're going to bring the king up, or if your king wasn't so close, you'd just keep him on the 5th rank and just let him along. E6, let's say he's giving you a hard time. The main thing you want to do here is you want to get king opposition. So king opposition means that your king and his king are on the same square. So if he decides to go back, that's beautiful. Now you can just slide your rook back. And now the king goes up once again. If he gives you a hard time, that's fine. Slide the rook over. You have no big deal here. He's going to try and run to the edge of the board. And now right here, moving your king would be a little inaccurate. You want him to create the king opposition. If you just decide to move your king, now he's going to move, and you're not going to have that opposition with the move. So that would not be the accurate move. You're just going to slide your rook over one. Now he has 2 options. He can keep making it difficult for you. Go to a7, but now you're at b5, and his only move is either to go back or b7. You get the opposition. Rook check. Now he's on the last triangle. This one's easy. You're going to chase down the king. Once again, trying to create that opposition. And once you get it, it is checkmate. Very similarly to how you do it with the king-queen. The king controls these squares. Now the rook delivers checkmate along the back rank. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how you checkmate with a rook and king. Now number 3, we're going to be talking about pins. And now pins can mean a lot of things. Now in chess, when you define an absolute pin, that would be like the position we see here on the board. The queen is absolutely pinning this knight. This knight cannot move in this position. Because he's pinned to the king. The reason he cannot move is that hypothetically, if you were to move the king, move the knight, that would put your king under check, which you cannot put your king in check forcefully, right? So, and this is very powerful in chess. This is something you have to take advantage of. As we see, if white just ignores his pin, this knight used to guard this e4 pawn. Now he does not. Now it's free for the taking, and you can start to create some nice attacks. Once again, if your opponent ignores this double attack on the knight, because it is pinned, it cannot move. If he ignores and tries to attack your knight, you can take, and I mean, now you're in a winning position. And that is how do you utilize absolute pins. Now, relative pins can be a little more tricky. If we go to this new position on the board, let's see if I can find it. Right here, now this is technically a pin, because although it is not an absolute pin, this knight can move. Moving it would cause your queen to hang. So 99% of the time, this is a good idea. However, you have to watch out because the knight can move And in fact, in this position, this is a losing mistake to go for this pin. This is a common trap in the Stafford Gambit due to the brilliant knight. Oh, nope, not knight G4. Knight E4 would be the brilliant move here. And now, sure, you can capture the queen. However, this would lead to checkmate in 2 moves. So relative pins, you have a little more leeway with. You have to calculate a little bit more. And you have to always be thinking, well, what if this knight moves? Is there anywhere that he can move that, can make this pin not work? So that is something to keep in mind with the pins. And now for the fourth thing we're going to be talking about forks. Now you can fork with plenty of pieces. However, when you think of fork, you think of the knight. And there is a reason for that. Now, we can look at this position on the board and you can say, well, you might have a hard time seeing any forks in this position. The queen and king can be forked, but this piece is covered by the pawn. And, this is a next level tactic. If this pawn wasn't here, right, this fork would be completely possible. And if you keep that in mind, you keep that, okay, this fork is here, it's almost here, I just got to do one thing to make it work. Sometimes you can use that tactic to create something else. And so in this position, actually the best move for black and the one that gives you a winning advantage is the brilliant rook E3. And the reason you can do this, because yes, you can capture, but then you're walking into the knight fork, and now you are going to be losing your queen. So forks, especially with knights, you can take this to the next level. If you're at the beginner level, this might go a little over your head. You might not even need to think about that. But always on the lookout for ways to create forks between kings and queens, kings and rooks, and creating that dynamic is always good. But that is the knight fork. That's a more advanced tactic with it. Now we also have queen forks. Queen forks can be very, if not just as dangerous as the knight fork. Now this is very useful if you get into a endgame where you have a queen versus 2 rooks. Now a queen versus 2 rooks is actually an even endgame if your opponent plays it correctly. However, it does not matter the level. Sometimes your opponent gets a little overzealous. And in fact, in this game, going against a 2,000 rated player, but he falls to the mistake of disconnecting his rooks. And now, if you guys can spot it, I'll give you a second. But there is a very easy way to win this game, and that would be queen a6, forking the king and the rook. So queen forks can be just as powerful as knight forks. You just gotta really be on the lookout for undefended pieces. In this position, he has almost everything is undefended. Oh, not that, but almost everything is undefended. And when that happens, sometimes you can piece these moves together that attack more than one thing at a time. And if it comes with check, even better. So that is your lesson on forks. Now the fifth concept that every chess player should know is discovered attacks. Now discovered attacks are some of the most dangerous things in this game. You can really create some beautiful things. And now if we look in this position, black has just slid his rook to the d file, eyeing this queen. And now if you ever see this a position like this on your board, you need to be careful, because you have to realize that this knight can move, and not only are you going to have to deal with whatever threat the knight creates, you're also going to have to deal with the threat that is on your queen. So in this position, if you're right, you really should think about moving your queen. However, in this position, opponent pushes a4, and I decided, okay, so I'm going to create this threat so I can see that this is a check. However, this would be a huge blunder, as even though, yes, it is a discovered attack of the queen would just take the knight. So once again, we're using the idea of setting things up. I go queen to g4. Now, it's not the most accurate move. However, it is, a fine move because it creates this threat of now I can play knight to e2, creating this rook, discovered attack. And it is also defended by my queen. So my opponent in this game does not see it. He simply tries to double up on the knight. And now knight e2 wins the queen, however way you slice it. So that is something to keep into mind is discovered attacks. When one piece moves, often a lot of things in the board change, and you have to pay attention to that. It is an ever-changing landscape. So always pay attention to discovered attacks. And now the sixth thing, this is going to be more of a middle game concept. Now, we were going to go over just simple tactics and ideas. This is going to be an overwhelming concept, and that is the idea of pawn storming. Now, when you play a game where you have opposite side castling, let me move back here a little bit. When you play a game where you have opposite side castling, it's often very important that you push your pawns, because you really want to disrupt the pawns in front of your opponent's kings while keeping yours at home. So, white in this position really should be pushing these pawns on my side of the board, and I should push on his side of the board, and we go to war. However, he decides to try and do, get a little fancy and do some other things, so I'd completely ignore it. We just go ahead and push these pawns in front of his king, and we see what happens. This can create a lot of attacking possibilities and open a lot of dangerous lines on his king. Knocked over the camera there for a second. So if we just skip through this game here, once again, his knight is jumping around. I'm preparing to launch a pawn storm, bringing my pieces over to his king side. And as you see, we end up creating a devastating attack. He tries to stop it with h3, but this does not work. If he decides to take here, that would open up the h file, and that would also be devastating. So better yet, he decides to move his queen out the way. But then once again, I could once again open up this g file. However, I decide to get more aggressive and keep launching these pawns forward and forward. He tries to block it off. Once again, even though this might be sacrificing a pawn, it's not in this position. But even if I were to sacrifice a pawn, it'd be worth it to open up the files. So g5, a last attempt of my opponent, but I ignore it. He can win my rook all day. It does not bother me. We now capture with check, and actually this game ends in a beautiful queen sacrifice. Just a slight move, g3, and this game's over. If you cannot see why, as you see, these pawns are fully in front of my opponent's king, so he has no legal moves. And after he captures my queen, which he does, simply slide down for the beautiful rook h1 checkmate. So that is how you pawn storm an opposite side castle. Very important concept to keep in mind. And now moving on to, I believe, number 7. I think number 7 here. On a very similar vein, we're going to talk about opening lines against your opponent's your opponent. So once again, we were talking about sacrificing pawns to create open lines. That also follows true in other reasons, because even though I might not be able to get these pawns all the way in front of his king, I can sacrifice the pawn to create an open file. As you see in this game, we decided to try and open up this b file to create an attack against my opponent. Or my fault. This is the white pieces here in this game, and even though my opponent is creating some tension over here on the king side or on the queen side, I'm able to deflect the king away or deflect the queen away. And now, even though I don't have any pawns on this side of the board, it might be hard for me to get in. There is a brilliant move you can play in this position, not in this position, which is to sacrifice the bishop, which is going to completely open up this king, open up like a can of worms. You could have taken this pawn and had these double open G and H files, but more accurately was to play this knight move. The game goes on for a couple moves here, but it ends up leading into a very nice checkmate. So, that's something to always consider, is sacrificing pawns to open up these lines. As you see, this king is booty butt naked in the winner. Like, he is wide open, and for that I can sacrifice pieces and get a lovely checkmate on the edge of his board, where his pieces can't do anything about. He had 3 pawns defending himself, but where are they now? Completely devastated. So that is how you open up lines without pawn storming, because sometimes it is necessary. Now we will be switching into the 8th concept every player should know, and this one is more of we're going into the end game now. With the in-game tactic, which is avoiding stalemate. Now, you can also take this idea to mean, creating stalemate traps. That's also something to think about. Let's see, we'll go back. This was a bullet game, so, if you're playing a 10-minute game, maybe this won't happen to you. But if, you're at the 1,000 rating or under, this could put, this is something that happens a lot at that level, where, I'm down 14 points of material. I have no hope of winning this game, so I have to realize, I just decide, okay, I'll hang my queen, take all of these pawns. And a lot of times they'll happily oblige. They don't want a chance of losing the game. I'd like to see I just keep on sacrificing these pawns, letting them take all these pawns, take them, and then finally we push a5. He takes that one, and it is actually a stalemate. There are no moves for my king, so you have to be very careful. For an advice I would say for avoiding stalemate would be not to take all these pawns. These 3 pawns right here are never going to do anything. It's way more important to go ahead and finish the checkmate. This king is stuck, these pawns aren't doing anything, your king is completely safe, so just go ahead. You're up 26 points of material. You don't need to be up 29. I promise you it's not that big of a deal. So do not capture all the opponent's pawns. Let him have a pawn, maybe even like a knight or something, just something that he can move, so that if you get into this position right here, it's not stalemate. There is checkmate in one on the board if he slides the rook over, but don't go pawn grabbing. And if you are a person who's down 25 points of material, go ahead and throw away your last couple pawns. Just create this opportunity for yourself. So that is what I'll say in the end game. That's a concept you should know about creating and avoiding stalemate. And now the ninth thing, this one in my opinion is the most important tactic. This will boost your elo 300 points at end games if you start doing this effectively, and that is called king opposition. Now in this position, there are many players that would make the mistake of pushing c5. After pushing c5, this is a completely drawn game because you have given up the king opposition. This king is going to push up to c6, and now you have no moves. You can go to c4, but at the end of the day, this is going to end up being a draw. I would sacrifice the pawn. You have given up the opposition. So if we take another look at this, and instead you take the opposition by pushing c5, now it is black to move, and he is forced to pick a side. It does not matter which side he goes to. We'll just say he goes to b7, which is fine. Now you can push d6, and once again he tries to get up to the top of the board. You meet him there, and now this king is completely helpless because obviously kings cannot touch. So this pawn is now free to walk all the way up the board and create a nice queen. And that is going to be you'll get in these end games where you're up just a pawn, maybe two pawns, and you really got to utilize this opposition tactic to win the game. So that is something to keep in mind. Always try it. If you can get this position here where you have the kings on opposite side of the file where the pawn has to be pushed, you're going to win that 99% of the time. So that is something to keep in mind. And now the 10th thing, this one I kind of threw in there at the end just because I think it's so cool. And if you can land this, if you've never seen this before, you're in for a real treat. I've almost landed this once in one of my games. However, my opponent resigned. And we'll go ahead and show it off here. It is called the Smothered Mate. And if you have never seen this, man, it's a real treat. So in this position, my opponent decides to go to the edge of the board, and this creates an opportunity that is irresistible for any romantic player. As you see, it's set up where you cannot have a piece defending this f2 square. If you do, it will not work. So bear that in mind. But the idea is to go for check. The only move is to go for this g2 square. And now you're going to go double check, so he cannot capture. The only move. Now he could go to f1. However, this like I said, there's no piece defending the f2 square. It's very important because that's also checkmate. More likely your opponent will go to h1, and now the absolutely brilliant queen g1, sacrificing the queen on empty square. The king cannot capture because it's defended by the knight. So the rook will recapture, and then now the beautiful smothered mate, the king entombed in his own pieces, f2 checkmate with the knight. Absolutely beautiful. Now, if you can ever spot this tactic in game and lay it on the board, send it to me. Those are always beautiful checkmates to spot. And if you ever get it, you'll be very content with yourself. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you. I hope you got a little smarter. I hope you were entertained. Those are 10 concepts that you can add to your game right now and become a better chess player. So, if you guys enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends at the library, at the bar, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.